The State Department has evacuated several American staffers from a consulate in China after they came down with a mysterious illness. Officials say a number of workers and their families at its consulate in Guangzhou were sent back to the U.S. for further medical evaluation. Their symptoms include headaches, hearing loss, and cognitive issues. They are similar to those experienced by American diplomats in Cuba in 2016. We're joined by CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues to discuss these latest developments. So, Jeff, we've now seen this type of attack in two places, Cuba and now China. Do U.S. officials believe these are linked and being done with malicious intent?
Well, listen, you can't rule out that they are linked, given that you had the incidents in Cuba and now what's happening in China. Too much of a coincidence that this would just be something that was happening by accident. And so investigators haven't told us much about what they found, but clearly there has to be some sort of connection there, and I think that's the way they're operating. In fact, they're treating some of the cases in China just as they did some of the cases in Cuba. Keep in mind, in Cuba, there were 24 Americans or diplomatic workers treated. In this case, so far, U.S. officials say one U.S. personnel suffered a medical incident, but there are many more who are being looked at, who are being examined. So there are so many similarities here, Elaine, that it's hard to rule out that this is something that someone is doing with malicious intent.
Well, Jeff, is there any sense of who the main suspects are?
No, it's too early for that, too. However, there are some American officials who privately say that, listen, this has to be some sort of state actor. Maybe it's China. Maybe it's Russia. But it's too early to assign any sort of blame at this point. American officials seem to be taking a more cautious approach to this, especially compared to what they did in Cuba. And, you know, when it came to Cuba, they were much more aggressive in trying to assign blame, in fact, blaming the Cubans. The Cubans denied that they had any involvement. But in this case, with the Chinese, they seem to be taking a more cautious approach.
Yeah, I was going to ask, has this incident affected diplomacy between the U.S. and China?
Well, that's a concern right now, given everything else that is going on in terms of the diplomatic relations between the Chinese and U.S. officials. And so that may be something that is at play here, why U.S. officials are taking such a cautious approach with these mysterious sonic attacks. But obviously, this is something that is serious. It is affecting U.S. personnel overseas. Could it be some sort of malicious attack? Who's behind it? You know, this is serious, and especially as these cases continue to grow.
Well, the State Department sent a medical team to China to examine staffers. What are they finding?
Well, they haven't reported back in terms of what they found just yet, but clearly there is a consistent pattern here that they're concerned about within State Department circles. There is concern about this, and that's why you have U.S. officials. They're not wasting any time, especially with these types of sonic attacks. Again, they're mysterious, but what is not mysterious are the link between the symptoms that people are showing that you see on the screen here: cognitive issues, headaches, hearing loss, nausea. So these are serious symptoms that people are showing. So this is something that is not a joke, and that's why you have U.S. officials taking it very seriously, and they're looking into it.
And what about Chinese authorities? Are they looking into this as well?
They say they are investigating, and U.S. officials acknowledged today that the Chinese seem to be taking the right approach in U.S. officials' view to this, that they are cooperating with U.S. officials' concerns about this mysterious sonic attack. So they say that they haven't found any cause or clues that would lead to a resolution of this. So publicly, Chinese officials are cooperating with U.S. officials as they investigate this, trying to get to the source of what is causing these sonic attacks, both in Cuba and now in China.
Deepening mystery. Jeff Pegues in Washington for us. Jeff, thank you.
My pleasure.